When is ice climbing more relaxing than your everyday life? That is the question that River answers in this video. So he'd been ice climbing the day before, and I asked him this question, and I was like, hey, do you wish you did as much ice climbing as you used to do? Because he used to climb all the time, rock climbing, ice climbing, all the time until about 2009. And then he stopped for several years. And then as a family, we started rock climbing again about 4 years ago now, maybe. And that was really the first time I had rock climbed and Trace had rock climbed. And then the little guys were still pretty little. But for River, rock climbing and ice climbing are the places where he feels the most relaxed. So anyway, I'm going to let him tell his story. But just note, Soren was sitting in my lap while I filmed this video, and there is some background noise happening that that I couldn't edit out. I asked the question. So, do you wish you were doing more ice climbing like you used to before?
Climbing on big ice spikes.
Yeah. Climbing on ice spikes and like climbing all the time. And...
It's climbing is complicated for me. I mean, there's no logical reason to put yourself at risk like that. I'm here in my pajamas, all cozy and comfortable at home. I'm with my family, and it's very wonderful. Why would I leave and go do something that's painful and difficult and cold
and could kill
and
you.
scary? And yet
you did it yesterday.
Well, I look back at some of the photos of my youth, I guess, and I get a little nostalgic because I spent most of from college all the way through until 2009, I guess, climbing professionally and guiding, and went all over the place, up to Alaska, out west, and down to South America, both personally and professionally. I was reading one of the great mountaineers. I can't remember which one it was. Maybe Messner, Reinhold Messner, maybe, but I'm not sure. That it said climbing is not aesthetic. It's not fun. It's barely difficult. But
that's a great quote.
I think for me, getting out of my comfort zone and doing something challenging that has real risk, and if it doesn't have risk, then you don't have the reward. It's not real if you don't have the risk, which is part of what makes climbing relevant today. I think we live in a world that people have created that's designed to be safe, or as safe as possible, right? But people are designed to deal with adversity, and when we don't have adversity, I know it's kind of sounds crazy, but something's missing. Climbing is sort of a way of choosing to do something like that something that's hard and challenging, and that you can meet it with skill. At the same time, climbing is not, you just don't go out there and just start climbing recklessly, right? It's about risk management. Today, what's important to me is coming home. I want to come home. I want to do things that push me. Like, I want to do hard things, but I need to make sure that I'm making good choices about safety and protecting myself while climbing. So, what that means when you're leading a climb, whether it's on rock or ice, you put protection. So you lead up, you're trailing a rope, and at the bottom you have somebody holding the rope for you, which is called belaying. And you put protection into the rock or ice. In ice, it's an ice screw. In rock, you put wedges, they're called nuts or cams, which expand in the rock in cracks. And should you fall, now you're above the gear. You'll fall a ways, but eventually the rope will come tight and you'll get caught. And the more out of your comfort zone you are, the more risky it is. And generally, the prudent thing to do is to put in more protection, which is a paradox, because when it's really hard and you're getting tired, we call it getting pumped. You can't hold on anymore. The last thing you really want to do is put in gear, put protection in, because maybe you're panicking a little bit. The trick is to calm down, relax. If you can relax, then usually, like, it's fine. You can put the gear in and keep going. But if you're too kind of freaked out, then what ends up happening is you spend a lot more energy holding on. Your hands get tired because you're over gripping, right? So it's a paradox. If you're scared, you have to relax. And not hold on so tightly. That's the thing. So this weekend, or yesterday, we went up to Frankenstein Cliffs out of North Conway, and which is a place where there's a lot of ice that I'm very familiar with. I used to climb there a lot and guide there. And the first climb of the day felt terrible. I felt awkward. My hands and my feet were cold. I didn't want to be there. I was like, what the heck am I doing? Why? Why? So that was the first climb. We did Chia, which is, people name climbs all sorts of funny names. And then we came down and we went up the Hobbit Couloir, which you can do in one pitch or rope length, or two. The upper section looked really thin, but it looked climbable and looked really fun. It was a thin column of ice inside a rock corner. So I led up the first section, which ended up having some steeper pieces to it. or section to it, steeper than it looked from the ground, but not bad. That I could put my shoulder, lean against the rock, and I got some good rests. I put a fair amount of gear in the steep section, and then we got up. I got up to the base of the upper column, and I looked at it. Certainly climbable, no problem there, but the column was about 25 feet tall from like the base of it. The bottom half was really thin, not thick enough to take a screw. It's old ice. I knew it was going to be kind of brittle and not necessarily well bonded to the rock. About the middle, it got thicker, but it was hollow. There was a void up the middle of the column. So it's likely that the only place I would have been able to get a screw that would have actually caught a fall would be at the top right before I exit. So that's 25 feet, right? Now, when you're climbing with crampons and ice axes, when you fall, you have all these sharp things all around you. So you can stab yourself. If you happen to land on the ice with your crampons snag on the ice, and the rest of you keeps moving, then of course, it's really, really common just to break your ankles or legs because they stick in and they don't move, and the rest of you just keeps moving, and so it's what you call the no fall zone. And so while it looked really fun, and while it looked very climbable, it was not protectable. And so it just took me a few seconds, and I was like, I'm not doing that. I have nothing to prove. And yet, I was looking at photos of an old photo of myself on mountain project on an ice climb called Repentance on Cathedral Ledge back from 2009 when I climbed that with a friend of mine. And it was basically that exact situation. We had climbed up the first pitch, and the second pitch consisted of a large ice column, but it was unprotectable. It was thin veneer ice up for a ways to get to the thicker ice, and so the only way to get there was, if you wanted to get there, was to take the risk and climb up the thin ice until you could get some protection in, about 25 feet up. And if you fell there, you were going to land on the belay ledge and then probably bounce off and into steeper parts. I mean, the rope would catch you eventually, but almost the same scenario. Different choices at a different time in my life. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a family. Climbing was really important to me then, in a way that it's different now, to some degree. Back then, I would have climbed if the old me was in the situation I found myself in on Sunday or Saturday. I would have just climbed it, no problem. But things have changed for me. Don't get me wrong. even when putting in lots of protection on ice climbing, there's still risk. I could still fall and break my ankles. Like, don't kid about that. That's still a possibility. I've never fallen on ice, if, while leading. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't happen. So it's not about eliminating risk. It's about managing the risk and making choices about what's acceptable. At least the way I think about it now. And what was acceptable back in my climbing heyday, I was willing to accept a lot higher risk than I am today. And part of it was that, like, I was doing a lot. I was much more physically fit. I was fit. I was more practiced. And when that happens, I was climbing a lot. So it didn't seem as, it felt more controllable. Or maybe you could say that because of a lot of exposure, I was desensitized to the risk. But I haven't been climbing very much. For the past 2 years, we've been working on first remediating our old house and fixing it up and selling it, and then working on this new property, clearing the lot, putting the driveway in, concrete, and then building the structures and so forth. So we've had 2 years of really it's been too much, of course, but we've had 2 years of what's the right word for it? It's basically been like emergency mode the whole time. Push, 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 push. And we're finally, like, over the emergencies. We can get by. So, like, I felt the need to try to decompress, try to stop, and when everything's been an emergency and I've been going full tilt for so long, it's really hard to stop and feel like it's okay to stop and take a break. So, and then that's part of what right now, taking the time to go climbing or going skiing with my family, those are like statements to my subconscious, and I think it's helped. It's my hope is that it will help me, like, let go of some of the stress of the past couple of years, because there's been a cost to that, with stress, anxiety, and it's affected all of us. So I'm trying to recover from all that craziness. And if you're going to build a house by yourself, there will be moments. Don't kid yourself. There will be moments when you're going to regret your decisions about what even starting.
I don't know what you're talking about. So do you feel like the climbing yesterday helped with your anxiety? It's kind of funny that you feel less anxious when you're doing things like that than you can sometimes when you're just sitting on the couch.
Uh, I used what I used to go on climbing expeditions, like mountaineering expeditions, up in Alaska. Um, I would go away. I'd go to the mountains. We'd have a goal in mind, climbing some mountain. We'd expeditions to Denali, or expeditions, expeditions on the Ruth Glacier. Some climbing trips, technical climbing trips on the Ruth Glacier, whatever it was. And they were usually, typically, they were a minimum of 2 weeks, 3 weeks for the bigger mountains, or a month. And so life became really simple, right? It was really simple. You're trying to move up the mountain, on these big expeditions. You have a lot of equipment, so you carry a load up high and cache it, and then come back down, and that helps you shuttle the equipment and food supplies up the mountain. But it also helps you acclimatize. They say climb high, sleep low. So you climb high, you get exposure to the atmosphere that has less oxygen, but then you come back down to the level that you're already acclimatized to sleep and recover. And doing that helps your body to adjust. Well, at high altitude, your body needs time to make more red blood cells, which carries then more oxygen into your body. It's a process called acclimatization. It takes time. So you're working. It's physical labor. You're working. You're doing that. You're melting snow to make water. You're cooking and resting, sleeping. Sometimes when the storms would roll in, you'd be stuck in your tent for 3 or 4 days. You'd have time to read, play card games with your partner, sleep. You have to go out once in a while to go to the bathroom. And what I found was that on those expeditions, like, all the hustle and bustle of modern living would just fade away. And I part of it was so focused. There's no complications. Like, there's no social stuff. There's no distractions that are so prevalent, today. So we'd finish the expedition, whatever it was. I would come back home, and what I would experience is that slowly over time, over the weeks and months that followed, my anxiety level would start to ramp back up. And for me, it started to feel like the mountains was the only place that I really felt I could really be calm and comfortable. But eventually, I decided that I had to find a way to, like, be a part of society and have connections, because I'm not a mountain. I'm a person. I need people, and I wanted to figure out how to do that. Anyway, that was kind of the beginning of the journey that brought me about to having the family that I have now. And so I spent a lot of I eventually stopped climbing, but I did it for so long see, there's a part of me, climbing is sort of, it takes me out of my comfort zone, right? So that can be hard to step out of your comfort zone. So after having been away from climbing for a while, um, it was hard to go back, and I feel more fragile than and maybe it's my imagination. I don't know. But when you top out on an ice climb, a lot of times there's snow at the top, and sometimes the snow is so deep that you can't dig down enough to get to the ice. And so in those situations, it's a little insecure. So, I sink my ice axe as far as I can into the snowy, icy mixture. And I try to test it, but you never can tell. Like, if I really pull on it, is it going to shear and come out? So I sink both ice axes, but I try not to pull on them. And I try to walk my feet up and over the edge while balancing and not pulling back, which is more secure when you have a good stick with your ice axe. It's another situation where you just have to relax, focus on your technique, stay balanced, but it's uncomfortable. I know that if my foot slips, there's a good chance that the ice axes aren't going to hold, and then I'm going pitching over backwards back where I came. And that insecurity, that's inherent in climbing, and that's uncomfortable. I don't like that feeling. And yet it's a part of it. And if I want to climb, I have to accept that there's lots of insecure, uncomfortable moments. And I just have to relax and focus on my technique. Maybe that relaxing in the face of, that's a lesson there, I guess, somehow. Because in life, in general, I do get wound up and have a hard time relaxing, and I get so focused on what needs to be done. And if I'm working with people, I get focused on trying to make sure that they're doing things properly. And I get wound up. And I certainly need to learn to relax a little bit. I get wound up. It doesn't feel like it's going to be okay, which is the same feeling that you have when you're climbing sometimes. So I think there's things to learn there. How readily it transfers to life, I'm not sure. I'd like to continue to take the kids and my wife climbing. There's some things I'd like to share with them. And personally, I'd like to get back to the point where I feel a little stronger. I think climbing can help me be healthier. I get more exercise in a way that's mentally and emotionally, and I guess physically stimulating. Looking forward, that's kind of what I think. And while there's some risk there, I don't really want to go and do like anything that has a lot of that's unprotectable or has super high risk. That's about it out. That's about it, folks. You can see my climbing gear dry. All right. Well, thanks for listening to my ramblings.
If you want to see some things that River did in his heyday, I'm going to put the link in the description so you can check it out. He had a lot of first ascents that he did, some aid climbing and some not. And it's kind of fun to go back and look at them with him. So I hope you guys enjoyed hearing what River had to say about climbing. If you want to hear more about our climbing experiences with the family and the other adventures we get up to, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.